All right, we're back. Most of the same people are still here, so I do that for fun. My name's Brian Rich. I run my own communications, whatever you want to call it, called Little Media, and Eve and the Beacon Fire team have been gracious enough to help create these Do Good dialogues, which is this opportunity to have people with different views and perspectives and experiences come in and talk about the various challenges that exist around the social good conversation and to where we go. I'm going to let you introduce what you do, because there's a lot of it, and I don't want to prioritize the way that you want to be described. But Adaora, why don't you?
What do I do?
What do you do?
What do I do? You're stumping me with the first question, Brian. Essentially, I'm interim president of a startup media company. It's called News Deeply, and we're a single topic publishing company. We have a flagship vertical, which is called SeriaDeeply.org. And essentially, we are trying to create a new user experience around complex global issues. And we see a world with lots of deeplies across environmental, geopolitical, public health, and technological issues.
So let's start there. So what is it in your view and your experience, and you've been a professional journalist in some of the largest journalistic institutions in the country. You have obviously been in the startup field, so you come at this from a bunch of different perspectives. But what needs improving about the user experience around complex issues? And because you guys break it down into two categories, technical solutions, and what falls into the category of new media, content, I would imagine, sort of, if you were to overgeneralize it. When you look at improving the user experience, how much of that is about technical elements, and how much of it is about the content itself, the new media itself that's being delivered?
There's about 25 questions in there, but I'm going to start with the first one, which is what problem are we trying to solve? And essentially, there's a lack of continuity of intense subject matter stories. Syria, for example. Because media, journalism, news is under such tremendous pressure given technological advances, as we all know, the ability to pay for content has forced, for example, in foreign bureaus for many of the American news outlets, they've shrunk. They have fewer people. They don't have the ability to cover these stories on an ongoing basis in a way maybe they did 10 years ago. So our quest is to make sure that we meet any user where they are in terms of their knowledge base. We spend a lot of time on background so that you have context. A lot of people in the US have no idea where Syria is. Where is Syria? Who are these leaders? What kind of government is it? Why should I care about what's happening there? And how does it relate to me? And so we've given I'll go into some of the technological advances. We have the ability to very quickly show people, give them answers to all of those questions in 5 or 10 minutes, in a way that, say, one of the big newspapers would have to spend a lot of columns writing, right? In a way that we don't have to. So if you know a lot about Syria, you can come to our website and there's value for you, because we'll talk about the latest things or what some of the important bloggers are saying on the ground in Syria. But if you know nothing, you can come there and get up to speed very quickly, and you leave our site and you can go anywhere and have a conversation about it or read anything and have some basic understanding of what's happening.
So I've actually been doing something similar conceptually around sports and the idea of engaging casual fans in sports, because the sports media, of which there is a lot, is very focused on what happened in the game and the stats and things that self-motivated fans would find incredibly valuable. And the comment, feedback that I get when I say, no, the context is important, the background is important, embedding or enabling that knowledge of what's going on to grow is necessary for people to become more engaged. The response I often get is, isn't that like Wikipedia, or isn't that like X, Y, and Z? So what is it about the user experience or the approach that you take that makes it more effective or more valuable than just free and available information out there? And I'm not using Wikipedia as a comparison, but I'm saying like Wikipedia is a free and available source of a lot of information. Forget whether it's accurate or not or blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of info out there. You're organizing information in a certain way. What is it that differentiates that approach from just people's ability to find stuff?
One word, which is comprehensive. It would take you probably an hour online to go and pull all the sources that we provide for you in one fell swoop. It's one-stop shopping. And it is a combination of, we have some original content, we aggregate the most credible sources on Syria, we have social media, where we, again, aggregate and hand-select those sources that we consider to be most credible. And so it's the combination of all of those things, along with, we have podcasts, we have video, we have data visualization of the map, of what's happening, casualty figures, where some of the biggest clashes are, and just giving you a sensibility of context for anything that's happening there. So that's all in a very simple design. So I mean, we're a combination of editorial curation, aggregation, development, and we create our own, as well as a design function. And you put those two together with that comprehensive material that you really would never have to go anywhere else. If you only had to look at one thing, you would completely and utterly be up to speed, both in terms of the background and what's happening today in Syria.
So let's talk about impact for a minute. My theory of change in the world is, the smarter we get, the more likely we are to make choices that are going to benefit all, right? And I think the underlying principle of journalism and media is, an informed public is a better thing. We now have a, increasingly informed public because of the ability for people to be connected. And you and I traded some emails on this, but someone raised a really interesting point to me the other day about Syria specifically, and said there is no shortage, arguably, of awareness about the atrocities that are happening in Syria among many incredibly influential people, as well as many people who, prior to those awful images and stories emerging, didn't care at all. And yet, very little of substance has changed. So help me understand how, when we live in a world where everybody has the camera phone and fewer things are able to hide, that the promise of those who say we now live in this democratized media world and look how things are going to be different, why hasn't that actually started to really happen? Why haven't we seen something like Syria change as a result of this finally we have people on the other side of the world being able to see what's going on?
I call that the human factor, because you're making a lot of assumptions there. At the end of the day, SyriaDeeply.org, we're agnostic as to the end result. We are trying to be credible in the sense of reporting the story and making sure that there is some awareness and that there is some continuity of coverage. Having said that, secondarily, that is the presumption, right? That awareness breeds action in terms of governmental policy or et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, I don't think technology changes how humans, and therefore governments, make decisions. So the awareness is faster than it's ever been in history because of technology, but there is not a corresponding acceleration of the way governments make decisions. And there are people who are much smarter than I am who spend a lot more time looking at
solving that problem.
Well, looking at and talking about that, because it's real. And it is interesting because it isn't as we would have expected. And when I say we, I say sort of the general consensus.
So you, both as a journalist and in the context of Deeply, are very comfortable owning your piece of the path to change. You're agnostic about what the ultimate outcome is. You believe that the comprehensive coverage and context and knowledge there will benefit whoever it is that wants or needs to take action. So let's take off your deeply hat for 1 second and say you did have a desire to not see something awful happen in Syria continue to happen. What is it that for-purpose organizations or brands or whatever, should be looking at deeply, and the way you're doing things, or the way you're providing this additional context and background and knowledge for this issue? What should they be taking away from that experience to say, okay, how do we pick up and do something different, right? How not that you would want to spur that change, not to put you in that position, but if someone was looking from the outside and saying, oh, we have a really interesting foundation from which to launch something, what is it that you would expect from a tool or a value standpoint you're providing that could be used by someone else to accelerate?
Well, I actually do care about this issue because let me tell you something. On the one hand, we're publishing our, which is the Syria Deeply, and the other Deeply is we're working toward. On the other hand, we serve Fortune 500 companies. We have, as I talked about, this the editorial curation process, the design, and then we have some enabling technology, which is this content management system, which is very simple and very nimble and very easy to deal with lots of different kinds of media. So if you're a Fortune 500 company, and as we all know, content has become very important in marketing and communication and so on, even for B2B businesses who 10 years ago or 15 years ago had no business in the public square. They just didn't. They went to their client base, they had conversations, dialogue in their industries, in their sectors. Today you can't really get away with that, right? Because websites are no longer billboards. There's got to be something sticky about it if you want to engage outwardly in some way. And so many corporations, companies, institutions, organizations are generating a tremendous amount of content. What do you do with that content? How do you create some engagement around that content? And so what we're finding is journalists have a particular skill set around this, which is different from advertisers or marketers. And one thing that we are really very good at is give me a clump of clay and I will carve out a Michelangelo. What is most important of this information? How do you engage people with that information? And how do you create some narrative that continues, right? So they don't just come once. But there's something sticky about it that's interesting enough that becomes part of your brand relative to your content. So we spend a lot of time with our clients, working with them and devising different ways to engage in an ongoing way, not just for one event or for a conference or something that will...
The theory.
Yes, exactly.
So then look at the lens of South by Southwest. Two last quick questions. The trend in many respects seems to always be focusing on shorter and snazzier and more creative and arguably in many respects less contextual and less comprehensive, because that is the prevailing belief among many as to what the attention span is of a global audience and what the technology is designed to enable many more bytes and things like that. Yours is sort of the opposite. You have the faith in people that should you feed their curiosity and satisfy their
It's actually not the
natural
opposite
interest.
though.
Okay.
Because so much of what we're doing is modular, right?
Okay.
So you can take or leave it. It's a menu of things that you can engage with. So you can read the article, that's 2 minutes, or you can, go through the map or watch one of our prezzies, which are like 6 minutes.
Right, but so the conversation that we often hear, particularly in places like South by Southwest, is that even modular, is too much. You need to boil everything down into one thing very short, and that's going to do it. And that's part of the challenge that everyone puts out in the news industry is that, people don't care about, spending the 6 minutes or the 10 minutes and blah, blah, blah. My question is, what is it about the conversation that exists in a place like South by Southwest, or in the discussions with brands and people who are trying to sell products and people who are making this argument for shorter, sexier, louder, crazy or whatever, that undermines your ability to make the case for deeply. What is it that's just shutting people off from even giving the idea of going deep a fair
But
chance?
but what I would say that what you're assuming is that I care about eyeballs, and I don't. I don't need eyeballs. I'm never going to get 25 million people to uniques a month on Syria Deeply. That's fine. That's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to that influencer set who actually does care about this, where they need something beyond the 30 seconds, the 2-minute 30. So for me, I'm an alternative. I'm not competing, like, say, with CNN and New York Times at all. I'm complementing them. And what I'm doing is putting a roof globally over all of those people who feel the same way. And that's what we're doing for each of our deepleads, because one of our measurements is whether or not we're going to choose a subject, is whether there's a need for it and whether there's potential for high impact. People have come to us and said, can you do a povertydeeply.com? We don't think that there's a need for it. There's tremendous resources out there that talk about global poverty and so on. Syria was different. Oceans may be different. Alzheimer's deeply may be different. So I mean, we're looking for a gap in the marketplace to bring together this community of people who want something more than 2 minutes or 30 seconds. So actually, that bolsters our argument. We're providing, again, an alternative.
We are at South by Southwest, and this is a unique cross-section of people from a variety of different areas of expertise and discipline. What question would you want to put to this gathering in relation to what you're doing? What challenge would you want help solving, either because you haven't figured it out or because you believe that the answer that's going to emerge because of this fascinating group of people all thrown together is going to be better than something that your small group might be able to conceive of with its existing experiences?
I love that question, and I love that question, and because immediately when you said I got goosebumps, you know what I really wish? I need a hackathon. I need a 12-hour, a 24-hour, cross-disciplinary group of people trying to answer the question of how do you pay for premium news? How do you frickin' pay for this thing? Because the whole world can't be, I was going to say something, but I won't say that.
You can say it.
No, I don't want to say that.